You're gonna be moving around? I was just.
Oh, no, I'll stay right here.
I mean, you can move around. I like to be that way, kind of. Yeah. So, the cameras have been freezing up anyway.
Okay.
So,
Don't worry about it.
don't even worry about making sure you're where the camera is.
All right, perfect.
So, okay. All right. Okay. Well, I guess we're at time anyway, so we'll get started. This is not Evan DeMarco. But AJ and I have had some great conversations over the last couple months since we started putting the workshop together. We kind of, I don't know, Facebook somehow kind of run into each other. So I'm happy to have him here and to share what him and Evan and their company they're trying to do and link what we know is good regenerative agriculture with the end customer. So I'm going to let him introduce the rest of himself and we'll get started.
Cool. Thank you.
Sneak past you here.
All right. So, just real quick, if you weren't in my presentation yesterday, briefly, let me just go through this, and most of this will explain it to you as we go. So, I am one of the partners of Wyoming Legacy Meats and Regenerative Pastures, and we have a couple of initiatives that we're working on to make it easier for producers to get their product into the market and make more. The idea is that you don't have to step foot into an auction at some point because we can help you maximize the value of that and get it right to the customer. Now, today's presentation is, we have a philosophy that it's an abundance over scarcity mentality. There are plenty of mouths to feed, so we're going to show you how to do exactly what we do or what I have done in the past as well, because with 275 million meat eaters in the United States alone, there's only about 2.5 million producers. And yesterday when I asked the people in the audience to raise their hand if they were selling direct, there were 3 out of 20. So there are plenty of mouths to feed that I don't have to worry about you knowing how to do exactly what I'm doing, that you're not going to take any money off the table from me. Does that make sense? And I'm not going to take any money off the table from you. So that's abundance over scarcity. So what I'm going to do is kind of go over all this. So just briefly, I call myself a half-breed. I'm a 5th generation city slicker cousin. So my families have been raising beef in this area for 5 generations. I got to go as the cousin that loved to go, but I didn't have to do that daily. I was a little bit jealous of that. And at one point, I know a cousin called me a city slicker, and I hated that. But the value that has provided for me to come back into agriculture is I can speak both languages. I know what the urban environment is looking for or what they can hear, and I also understand how to communicate with people in the producer world because I grew up right next to it, right? So what I did not enjoy as a youth has actually become a blessing in what I'm trying to do to help the producers go direct to consumer or sell through our network. So basically in 2020, I started selling direct to consumer for my cousin's ranch down here in St. George. Immediately ran into the problem of no processing space to keep up with our growth. And so during that first part of the year, I got to experience a lot of the challenges, but also the benefits of meeting people directly that were going to be blessed by the product that my cousin was raising, but then I had to go through the shipping issues and the processing schedules and fulfillment and all of this kind of thing. So I'm going to share that with you. But when I ran into this processing issue, I couldn't grow, so it didn't make sense for me to spend any more time trying to build a business that I couldn't grow. There just was no more space to add cattle to the processing. So I went out and found some people to help me fix the problem. Store shelves were empty in 2020. The only way to fix that, in my opinion, was to redistribute the food supply chain, and the major hurdle there was processing plants. So our goal is actually to build small processing plants all across the country where they're needed. So anybody that orders a box of beef doesn't get a box of beef or protein any further than one state over. That's how it should be. So we bought our first plant in Cody, Wyoming, and we are going to be expanding throughout the country. My partners, in order to do something like that, they have to have deep pockets and also know how to vertically integrate a supply chain to make it successful. So KD Pharma was their company. They scaled it from, when they stepped in, $4 million a year to $1.2 billion in revenue, and then they exited. So they had the money and the know-how. And I came along just as they exited, and they were looking for the next thing to be involved in. So that's who my partners are, KD Pharma. They've sold multiple billions of dollars globally direct to consumer. And if you want to kind of see the parent company, that's CompleteHuman.com. You won't see anything about beef on there yet because we are just rolling this out. Nothing goes to waste. Because of our network size and connection, every single piece of the animal gets sold if it's done regeneratively. I can sell all of the organ meat. I have a high demand for all the liver, heart, tongue, hide that I can get my hands on. However, our buyers are only going to buy that if it's done regeneratively or raised and finished on grass. If you're curious why that is, it's because an animal that is fed corn and grain, the fat that enters the marbling process creates an unhealthy liver or heart. So that's why we're looking for grass-fed and finished only. So we have the strategic partnerships. Social media is a massive tool, so I'm going to go into this in detail. So if you want to take notes or take screenshots, that's going to be the best. But just so you guys kind of know why I'm here talking about this, I'm going to show you, if it works, this little video. It's not a video, so it won't work. Anyway, that is a short clip of a company I used to run. It was called Rush Club. It's a head-to-head fitness competition. My budget for marketing was $3,000. My viewership live was 250,000 live viewers. And I did that consistently, event over event, and we grew each time because we leveraged the power of social media and social media influencers. So that's why I feel comfortable in speaking to you guys about that today. So adding direct to customer to your operation. Why do you want to sell direct? This is what we're going to talk about. Why? Do you know that person? Oh. Why do you want to sell direct? What's the goal? If you're here, what's the purpose? Do you need to add, is it a hobby, or are you trying to make it another enterprise on your operation? So is it out of necessity? Are you doing it for fun, just to connect your locals with your product? Or are you doing this because you have a purpose? Right? Is there a bigger picture involved, like the guys from Three Springs? They're doing this, I think, as much as a purpose as it is a business, because if you've been in their presentation, they are not making money right now. So it's about doing something different on the land. Realistic expectations, we're going to discuss that. And that will play into whether you want to do this as a hobby or if you're looking to do this out of necessity. And then, is the juice worth the squeeze? Then we're going to discuss what's next, what's needed. So we're going to go over branding, marketing, sales, processing, storage, fulfillment, and customer service. I'm going to break that down for you. So again, take pictures of the slides if you're interested in this. I'm going to give you all the information you need to go do this. You're going to have to become a YouTube University expert to break down the distinctions in each one of those spaces, but I'm going to point you in the right direction, okay? And then who's going to fill what role? How many of the middlemen roles do you want to take on? So that's something that needs to be go into consideration. And then access to processing is one of the biggest challenges for many people. And then how to go direct. What are the steps to going direct? So we're just going to go through all of this. So why go direct? Well, usually it's because you want to keep more profit, right? You know that tomahawk steaks are selling for $80 a piece. How much of that did you see? Nothing. Like a fraction of a penny of that, right? Because a producer gets about 14 cents on the dollar is what the estimation is. All the people in the middle get everything else. So one of the reasons to go to direct is you want to keep more of that profit. But then there are realistic expectations, because there are processes that need to be accomplished between your product and the consumer. So do you have the time, the capital, the storage capacity, and the processing slots to be consistent? Because the number one thing your customers will want is to know that they have a product you have a product every time they need it, right? If you are, hey, sorry, we're out this month, they're going to go find somebody else that is more consistent. So you have to make sure you have that consistency. And then, is the juice worth the squeeze? What ROI do you need to see to make the added time worth it? Now, if you're a family with many family members, that can be divided up and people can be given roles and that money can stay inside the family. So larger families can actually do this really well if they have good communication. Okay, so let's talk about branding. So who's your audience? So when we talk about branding, we're talking about what your image is and who your audience is. Are you going to focus on local? If it's local, family, your family's face, your family's name, those kinds of things, that's great. If your goal is to expand beyond local and go interstate, I've met many operations, they get to about $5-6 million in valuation and their family's name on that package starts to become a barrier to growth if they're trying to grow beyond that. Because it's a little bit more localized, I guess you could say. If you're looking to scale interstate or broader than just your town, you need a brand that people are going to feel more, right? It can be an idea or a feeling. But if you're going to sell beyond just your local town or whatnot, and you want to scale it beyond just a small hobby, I would encourage you to not throw your family's name in there or your family's faces as the head of that. Okay, so there's a distinction there. You want to be local or interstate. And then another thing to consider with branding is, would you wear it? There's actually a lot of added value you can generate for your operation if your brand is a brand that people will wear. And believe it or not, a lot of people will wear your brand if they're supporting your business because of what your messaging is. Family member of mine has been doing YouTube for a while on their ranch, and they had a special guest come out and help them unstuck a big bulldozer. Well, that guest had 1.4 million followers on their YouTube, and my cousin at the time had only 433 followers on his. 3 months later, he's got like 30,000 followers, gets an average of 10,000 viewers per video, and his conversion's really high. Well, now, just on YouTube alone, he's launching his apparel. They'll be doing, a few $1,000s a month in apparel alone based off their engagement. And that's it. They want to wear the brand. So consider that as you're growing that as well. And then your messaging. Your customer needs to be the hero. We're going to go into that a little bit more. Customer is the hero, and it changes with the kind of audience that you're working with. And I'll explain that in further detail. Marketing. So online versus offline. These are just some ideas. You guys, I'm here to be of service. I'm not here to be right. Challenge anything I tell you. Okay? There's literally nothing up here for me other than I want to see as many producers be successful as possible because we need your farms to be handed off to the next generation. That's what it comes down to, okay? So if you want to challenge me, please feel free or ask questions as we go. So online, social media, what platform are you willing to utilize to reach your customer? How much time do you have to commit to Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, all of these different platforms? Take that into consideration as you're deciding where you're going to go. Once you decide where you want to go, then each of them are going to kind of have their own tips and tricks. So for example, how you sell on Facebook is by not mentioning that you're selling meat. Because Facebook has a heavy influence, it seems, with PETA. So if you try to post a picture of a steak, it's going to be flagged and blocked and nobody will see it. They'll actually kick it off. If you post a picture of your ranch's apparel that leads them to a link that has other options to buy things like beef, now you can get around some of those Facebook algorithms. You can also get clever with your wording. If you say steak or something like that, it'll get flagged. If you say dinner and so forth, or have like a majority of the portion of your image be more fruits and vegetables, you can get around some of those algorithms. But there are challenges when you start marketing on certain social platforms because of other behind the scenes interests that you've got to navigate. Instagram. I'm going to talk about it right now because I don't remember if I have a slide for it, so we'll go into that, and if there is, I'll just skip over it. Instagram. No, I do have a slide, actually, and we're on it. So influencers through Instagram. You have micro and macro influencers. So micro influencers, you would consider somewhere around 10,000 followers. So if you go on Instagram, Somebody's photo will show you, or their profile will tell you how many people are following them. But when we're talking about influencers, you also want to be looking at their engagement rate. So if somebody has 100,000 followers and they get an average of, 1,000 likes, that's pretty decent. If you have somebody that's got 1 million followers and they get 1,000 likes, you don't know if they paid for those followers or if they're just there to look at the, half-naked photos that they post, frankly, right? Because there's no engagement. So you've got to be aware of the engagement in those social profiles as well. But here's where this comes in handy. You can go to a micro-influencer with 10,000 to 40,000 followers. They are very appreciative of anybody reaching out to collaborate with them because they're up and coming. They've been working on their presence. And so it's typically much easier to negotiate a value in exchange for their exposure. Plus, those smaller number influencers are more engaged with their audience, right? Because they're still trying to build their following, their social exposure. So when somebody comments on one of their posts, they are more likely to engage or to comment versus just let it go. If you've got 1 million followers, you are not talking to a fraction of the people who even engage with your post. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's one of the ways you can leverage Instagram and your influencers there. Let me back up real quick. On Facebook, something to just kind of be aware of when you start marketing there. I call them looky-loos. People who will send you a message. I mean, anybody ever sold on Facebook before? And somebody gives you a message, hey, is this available? And you say yes. And then that's it. It happens all the time. So you'll post something, somebody will ask you about the product, you'll respond thinking they're ready to engage in a conversation. You say yes, it's available, and you never hear from them again. Now, the reason I bring that up is because that's a time suck, right? You're spending time engaging with somebody that really is just there to ask some silly, it's kind of funny, it's comical how it works. I've seen some social media memes about people that are inquiring about products on Facebook because it's prevalent. So when I talk about target audience and your messaging, when you're looking at social media influencers, who is it that you want to engage with? So right now we are running a campaign with stay-at-home moms that are influencers because we want stay-at-home moms to reach other stay-at-home moms that are doing the cooking for the home and have to plan the meals for the week. And we understand those pain points because I'm married and we have 3 kids, and planning the meals for the next week is not the favorite thing to do. So we are creating a program. We're going to leverage connections with stay-at-home moms that have a 10,000 plus following, and the messaging that they're going to put out on behalf of us is that when you buy a box from us, it comes with the week's meals ready to go, or at least the main component, right? The meat. So we make their weekly planning better. So that makes mom the hero in her home because now she's got next week's meals all ready to go. Does that make sense when I say make them the hero of your story? You can target the barbecue community, the Traeger community, the Traeger smokers. If you want to build a list of those followers, they're going to be the hero of their next barbecue in the messaging, right? That's how you adapt it to the group that you're reaching out to. Does that make sense? Okay. And like I said, compensation will be negotiated based off how many followers they have, what their engagement rate is. A 2% engagement rate is considered good on social media. 5% is awesome. So if you can find somebody that's got about a 5, and the way you calculate that is you see how many followers they have, and then you look at how many people are engaging on their photos on average, like just double tapping clicks a heart, and then how many people are commenting, and you can kind of equate their engagement. So that is a method to weed out the people that are just paid for their following or so forth, okay? Then you have online, you have your website with shopping services attached, things like Shopify, third party. There's a company called Barn to Door. You have to pay for the service, but they take up so many of the challenges for the middleman. I don't work for them. I used them when I was doing it, and they solve so many of my headaches. because they help build the website, they help me with my shipping zones, they help me with so many different aspects that basically they kind of took over the role of 3 or 4 of the middlemen, right? I still had to do the labor side, but they helped me with the automation of a lot of that. So that's something you can look into called Barn to Door. Then there's contracts for, you can contract people for different services or different needs that you have. The website is called, do you have a question? Yeah, please, if you know others, I've only worked with them. Yeah, it was. I did, I tried Shopify and stuff on my own, but when I was looking around, Barn to Door was the one that stood out to me the most for their usability and their consulting. Oh, no. Okay. Oh. Interesting. One of the reasons I chose Barn to Door is the size of their network of farmers and ranchers they were helping. It was pretty large, so that means they were pretty dialed in. On Fiverr, so Fiverr, Fiverr.com, anything you don't know how to do that is like a technical aspect or a special skill like branding and marketing and all of this kind of stuff, you can hire somebody for a very small fee, so you don't have to know it all. For example, I wanted to put the list of influencers together for stay-at-home moms, so I hired somebody on Fiverr, and I gave them the parameters. It cost me $33. They came back with a list of 41 influencers that had 10,000 to 40,000 followers. They had their engagement rate all in there. They didn't bother giving me any names that didn't meet the engagement rate of at least 2%, which was my requirement for them. So they went and did all of that research. That means they went and clicked on a profile. They looked for that specific audience. That would have probably cost me a day's worth of work, and I paid $30 for that. Does that make sense? So Fiverr's a phenomenal tool. Not even just for doing this. Anything you guys are up to, if you're like, man, I wish I had fill in the dot, somebody that you know, go on Fiverr and you can hire them. There's another one called Upwork as well that's pretty popular for that kind of service. And then another part of the online sales and marketing is ad spend and paid marketing. There's entire courses on this, so I'm not going to go into that part, but my intention is so you guys can see all of the different aspects of this. And then, like I said, I'm going to go into all of it so you can make a real educated decision of if this is the path you want to go. And then if you do, go all in knowing it's going to be work. But at the end of the day, it could be really worth it for your family depending on the context. Now, offline marketing, farmers markets, those are phenomenal. You meet people right where they're at and close to your home, right? If you're producing here in southern Utah and you're able to get USDA processed beef, Las Vegas is an hour and 45 minutes away. That is a phenomenal market to take off and go into if you can sell into Vegas. It's huge. You'll never run out of customers. Every single producer in southern Utah could go there and make a bunch of money, right? You just got to do the right marketing. So farmers markets, fairs and festivals, subscription signups and pickup. So like if you go to farmer's market and your goal is like, I just want to do this on a basic level for my family just to bring a little extra income in, but I don't have a ton of time, go to your farmer's market, sell your subscriptions there, and have them meet you there every time you're at the farmer's market to pick up their subscription. Bring their own ice chest. You've saved money on shipping costs, you've saved money on packaging costs, and you've saved money on fuel costs driving all over the place to try to get it to them. So depending on your context of what you're trying to create, like I said, hobby or full-blown business, you can adjust how you're doing this to meet the needs of what your context is. If you add a grill to your, you have to get the proper licensing, food handlers and stuff like that, but if you add a grill to your booth at the farmer's market, now you're selling a quarter pound of beef for $12 in a hamburger. Like I might just flip burgers instead of selling beef because I'm not making $12 for a quarter pound, you know. But the value of that is now they're tasting your product while you're signing them up for subscriptions, so they don't even have to guess what's going to come to their house. Does that make sense? So there's some, it's about getting creative, right? Now, obviously, if you're going to do a grill and be at a farmer's market, you have to consider labor, your management, and your time. Is it worth it for what is your ROI from doing that worth the time? And then get creative. That's the other thing I would suggest. If you are not sure where to start with, I shared this yesterday. There's a really great podcast. I have no association with the person, never even talked to him, but it's called the Ranching Brunette, like hair color, podcast. She hasn't posted anything since the end of 2020, but all of the content that's in there, all the episodes in there, up to that point, are gold. Here's why. Her focus is first generation farmers and ranchers. That's who she interviewed. Now, the reason I say it's gold is if you had to purchase the ground that you're operating on, you are leveraged. So you're going to look for every opportunity possible to create ROI. Comparatively, if you inherited the ranch you're on and you don't have that same bill, you may not be as hungry. So it might not be as, some of these new ideas may not be flowing to you just out of necessity. Does that make sense? They have to find new ways to do things because the amount of debt they're in for the land they bought and the animals or the product they started with could be significant. So they're going to go everywhere. So listen to that podcast and just pull gold nuggets out of there that could be of value. That make sense? All right. Any questions about marketing online, offline? Any additions? Okay, sales and customer service. Sales. Again, we're going into the how-tos. That's what this presentation is. Sales. Answer messages on, so this is kind of what's required, answering messages online. If you're promoting on Facebook and Instagram and all of these other places, you're going to get messages, so somebody needs to go in there and answer those messages. You need to take phone calls, talk to them about what your products are, and then you get to set prices. So that's another plus. I hear that complaint a lot, is that we don't get to dictate the price, right, in the agriculture space. Undercutting is not necessary. As we've discussed, there are plenty of mouths to feed. One of the things that's the most frustrating is seeing a producer come along and think that, and have the scarcity mentality, so they take a product that is being sold for to the regular consumer in the grocery store, which is not nearly as good as what you're producing, right? And they're paying for grass-fed beef about $9 to $10 a pound in the store. You are worth $9 to $10 a pound at the farmer's market. That beef in the store probably came from Cisco, right? And we don't know if they actually fed it on grass. You know, and then they're going to get to know you. What happens is a producer with the scarcity mindset comes in and doesn't think there's enough people, so then he goes and undercuts everybody else at $5 a pound. If you get to dictate the price for once, finally, do it. But do it right. Don't undercut each other. There is plenty of mouths to feed. By the way, if that happens, let that guy run his course. It won't last long. The amount of labor involved to do this won't justify undercutting your own value. Okay? So, it is your chance to set the price and do it right for what you know it's worth. You are cutting out the middleman on purpose. You might as well make every bit of that $10 a pound, minus your expenses to process it and get it there. Determine your package or packages. So are you going to sell bulk? Are you going to do quarter, halves, and whole shares? You're going to do beef shares. Typically, you won't make as much on that, but you can move a lot of beef much quicker. So we did a lot of beef shares. Beef shares will work. Beef shares work much better when you can't process USDA, right? Because you need shareholders in that. Check your local legalities and see how much you can break that share down. You know, if you have a 400 cow, maybe you're selling a 40th of a share on a monthly subscription. But check out the laws, get creative. As entrepreneurs, that's our goal. That's our job, is to find ways to work the system, right? When I was selling subscriptions, we weren't consistent with processing spots that were all USDA. So we sold their next month in advance. Does that make sense? So they were basically, when they canceled with us, they had a beef coming, because that's how I was able to maintain subscriptions with without being able to sell it to you like right when it came out off the plant if it didn't have a USDA bug on it. So they already owned the cow. So when our inspector came by, he got a spreadsheet of who were the shareholders on that cow respectful to the volume that we were allowed to break that down. Does that make sense? So get creative. Find a way to make it happen in the meantime. Monthly subscriptions are really great. If you've got those down, it's awesome to know you have an exact amount of revenue coming in every month as you're growing, right? If you're selling fresh bulk order, quarter halves and wholes, you don't know what's coming the next month. But the more people you get on subscriptions, I can look at my spreadsheet and see I've got, 40 orders coming in that total this month, and I can pretty much count on that month after month because they are on subscription. So, anybody have a subscription to anything in here? Netflix, newspapers, like that's the model. Subscription is the model nowadays. Let's see, custom or individual cuts is something to. I did farmers markets, yes. I didn't cook burgers at them. So I am talking to a farmer's market in Vegas that is open to that, but I didn't ever try it here. Have you run into issues with that? Oh. Yeah, well, it does. It depends on where. Certainly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I appreciate that, Claire. You got to know your market, right? But you guys go to the fair here in St. George? You know what a burger costs at the St. George Fair? Still the same population, but you're right. Different mindset when they go there. Exactly. Yeah, so know your market, kind of know what's going around, and then adjust your prices from there. If you're going to go into customer individual cuts, that requires more bookkeeping to know how many cuts of ribeyes or T-bones. So if you're going to do custom select, that gets more complicated. I always just did, when I did it, I did a 10, 15, and 25-pound box of beef. That's what they selected from. And in that, like let's take the 10-pound, for example, I would say you get 2 to 3 pounds of steak, 3 to 4 pounds of roast, and then, like, I think, what's the math, 7 pounds left of ground beef. Never had a complaint, no issues. Well, also made it much easier for me because I wasn't like hand-picking different cuts. My customers, I told them, I said it's assorted, so it'll be different each month. That way I wasn't also being picky on who got T-bones and who got ribeyes. Now, I did give them the option in their special notes because I want to take care of my customers. Do you have a preference? And if, as I was packing their box and I had a T-bone there and they preferred T-bones, then that would go in the box. So that's kind of how we ran our operation. It worked really well until I couldn't get any more processing spots. Now, with that being said, there's also a lot of profit left on the table when you do it that way. So the more you're able to piece out the individual cuts and get really refined on that, the more revenue you will make, okay? Because certain cuts of beef go for more, right? My skill set is not crossing T's and dotting I's, so I had to make it as simple for me as possible. I'm a visionary, I'm not an implementer. Special upsells, if you start making jerky or bone broth, so those bones that would typically get discarded and not sent back to you at the butcher, take them. Bone broth was selling for $18 to $20 a quart. Now, somebody's got to be in the kitchen cooking bone broth, but when at a farmer's market they'll pay $18 to $20 a quart, that's not bad when that bone would have just ended up in the landfill anyway, right? People ask me all the time for bones for dogs. So as far as I was concerned, it's your product. How you use it is up to you, because then we weren't worried about, it was up to them how they used it, and we didn't have to have special permits on dog food or dog bones. They're soup bones. If you want to give it to your dog, give it to your dog. I've heard nightmares that food processing for dog food is as complicated or more complicated than human food. It's crazy. So those are your value add, your special adds. If you have apparel, that's where you would have that in there. So as they're going through the checkout, they can add that and throw it in there as an add-on, okay? Customer service, you need to answer calls, emails, social media messages from current and future customers and manage those relationships. Now, I put a section in here talking about integrity. It's like gravity. You either have it or you don't. Fastest way to put yourself out of business is try to cover up a mistake. You will gain customers if you make a mistake and they are unhappy and you correct it. you will gain customers if you correct that mistake. Versus if you try to hide it because of embarrassment or, I've had to pay out of pocket money that sucked, it hurt. But when I did that, I gained 2 more customers because they knew they could trust me to do right by them the next time for sure. And then guess what? That lesson cost me money, so guess what? I didn't make that mistake again, right? So integrity is like gravity. Make sure you have it. Don't shortcut anybody because that will get found out. Mistakes happen, so just own them. Fulfillment. Fulfillment is probably the worst part of doing this job, okay? Because there's just a lot to go into it. So a lot of people, we're going to kind of talk about this, how to schedule this, because this is another place I made a mistake. So first off, access to processing spots. Make sure that you're scheduling out well in advance. Anybody have to deal with scheduling a butcher lately? Yeah, they're way out, aren't they? They laugh at you when you say, hey, can you get me in next month? So get your processing booked now and then stay consistent over time so that if you can get a butcher to commit to you like, hey, look, I'm doing this. I'd like to reserve 3 spots a month to start or something like that. And then just make sure you have the beef, okay? So they're pretty backed up. USDA can be worse. Plus now, like I said, you're dealing with international competition with Chinese representatives running around buying up as many spaces as they can in the local processors. So like I said, I don't know if I told this group, but we closed on our plant in Cody, Wyoming. The very next day, we had a meeting in the office with somebody from China wanting to buy 8 shipping container loads a month. And we told them no. So it's crazy. It's just where it's going. And the reason other processors are doing that is because they pay more. So for us, though, the difference is the processing plant for us is a necessary means to an end. It's like a contractor owning a fleet of trucks. The trucks don't make the money, but they get the work to the job, right? For us, the processing plant isn't our moneymaker. It's just the piece in between so that we can take the product from the rancher right to the customer. So we're not trying to make profit off our processing. So they're not offering us anything of value. Our value comes from American raised beef going to American families, period. Shipping and packaging. So in the shipping and packaging, you've got to figure out your boxes and your box sizes for the volume of beef that you plan on shipping, 10, 15, 25-pound boxes. You've got to look into your shipping labels, insulated inserts to keep it cold long enough if you're shipping. Dry ice, 5 pounds or less, anything over, and don't, I'm just going to say go and look at the legalities for yourself just to make sure I'm not incorrect here, but it was something like 5 pounds or less, you don't have to have special labeling. So you can ship 5 pounds of dry ice and not have to have special labels on that, okay? But really what you're looking at is trying to optimize your shipping zone, which is about 48 hours ground. So wherever you live and can get a UPS truck within 48 hours, that's roughly where you want to start as a shipping operation. If you are willing to make a drive to a hub, you might be able to increase the reach, right? So I'm here in St. George. If I drove to Vegas and shipped from Vegas, I now can reach further in Southern California because it's taken off from Vegas much faster. If I ship from St. George takes it back to Salt Lake and then to Las Vegas. I don't have time for that. My beef's already thawing, right? One of those lessons fortunately was a buddy of mine in LA, and I sent him a box of beef, and it showed up, and by the time he got it, it was leaking out the side on his porch. So I feel bad for whoever's packages were next to that in the UPS truck. So to that end, always make sure you're shipping on Monday or Tuesday. Do not ship past Tuesday. If you ship past Tuesday, you risk it ending up, and that's what happened to me. I waited too long, there was a delay, and it ended up in the UPS facility over the weekend. So it was completely thawed and rotting by the time it got there. So I corrected that mistake by sending him another box with a couple of fillets for dealing with the stench. So let's see, time of year and temperature of the region will dictate your shipping as well, right? Middle of the summer down here, I can't be consistent and trust that it's going to get to LA, especially with everything that's going on with shipping nowadays. So in the summer, I had to put my Phoenix customers and my San Diego customers on hold till it cooled off. It's just too hot. So those are some challenges in the shipping side. Then maximize your shipping zone, like I said. So whatever you can reach within 48 hours is going to be best. Any questions on any of that so far? All right. Local pickup and delivery requires less input. So customers meeting you at, like I was saying earlier, meeting you at a central pickup location. So maybe you're not doing a farmer's market in Vegas, but maybe you have a place to meet them. Hey guys, I'm coming down first Saturday of every month. I'll meet you in the parking lot of X. Come pick up your beef. A lot of customers are really okay doing that because they're meeting you, the producer, in person. Now, when you're selling into a city, there's that disconnect that's also romantic for them. So when they meet the rancher and shake his hand, if you're a ball cap cowboy, put your cowboy hat on. Serious. If you're a ball cap cowboy, show up with the cowboy hat on, you'll sell more beef. Because the romanticization of the Western rancher and getting it right from the farm matters to them. Again, you're kind of making them the hero. When they have somebody over for a steak dinner, they're going to brag about you. Okay? Let's see, door-to-door delivery with additional fees. So one of the things I also started doing here locally is people could pay an extra $10 and I would take it to them, right? If I had a full load for the day, I more than covered the cost of my fuel. It was okay for my time, so I did a $10 delivery fee, and so those customers were happy to pay that extra $10 not to drive down and meet me at a certain pickup location. So you just got to determine what makes sense for you and what would be more appealing for what you're trying to accomplish, right? Is this a hobby deal or is this an enterprise you're really trying to maximize on your ranch? UPS shipping account will provide savings after you hit a certain volume of shipping. So as we're talking to UPS right now, for our new operation, if we hit over $1,000 a month in shipping, we hit another tier of discounts in shipping. So you can start reducing the cost of shipping. So reach out to UPS and ask them about customer accounts. They'll also, depending on your location, and if you get a UPS driver that comes by your area, they're pretty much everywhere, you can coordinate it to where they'll pick up from you. Instead of you having to take all those boxes of beef to the UPS store, if it makes sense for your context and how far you are, they'll pick them all up from you so you don't have to fill a truck full and then go wait in line. That makes sense? You'll have to print special labels, they'll scan them all in and take them right from you. So that you can automate. What you want to do if you're getting into this is automate as much of this as you possibly can, because there are still all those middleman roles to fulfill to get somebody a box of beef, right? So again, the question is, how many of those roles do you want to take on? You can schedule, so the last thing here is join an online community. So there's a guy named Cam King. There's some people I've met here at the seminar. They are consulted by Cam. I don't have anything to do with him. I just know him. I've had a few conversations. Seems like a great guy. I'm bringing him up because his online community is very helpful. So it's called Grass-Fed Marketing, and it's on Facebook. It's a free group. You can join it. He's there to hire as a consultant if you want more one-on-one time. So I gained a ton of value just from people in that community sharing. Yeah?
What about 5 Marys?
Yes. Not lately, but 5 Marys is phenomenal. I've met people that use her program, and she'll take you and consult with you one-on-one, but 5 Marys is another one that's a really great resource. They also come with a lot of business background from their past to really help you maximize and leverage if you want to pay a consultant and go that route. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Again, this is just a name that I remember just to point you in the right direction. So there are good communities out there. One of the reasons I brought them up specifically was the help that I got from somebody that posted about the type of material to use for shipping. One of the members of that grass-fed marketing group went and did a whole study, and he had times and photos and everything about how well their product lasted in a specific type of packaging that was very helpful. I didn't pull it off there out of respect to them, So I'll just send you that community. If you're curious when you get into that Facebook group, just click the little search icon and type packaging, and it will bring up all the conversations that's been in that group about that particular subject, which is a tool you can use, by the way, for anything you're looking for, okay? Any questions on that before I move forward? All right. Inventory management, you're going to need to have really good record keeping, so you know what inventory you have, you know what you need for next month's deliveries, what your shortfalls are, how many customers, how many customers order what size of box or bulk. So you need to have all of that written down, how many 5 pound, 10, 15, 20 pounds are going on, what the bulk orders that are there, so keeping good records is going to be important. Delivery dates, special requests, and then, again, keeping enough cattle ready to slaughter, so you've got to manage your fat cows ready to go and the schedule to get them into the processor, and then all of that in between. Temperature control, pickup, storage, and delivery. This is in no way in order for what is best or makes sense. A freezer truck is not going to be cheap, right? But a freezer truck, if you had the capital, is very helpful. I bought an old retired Swan truck from the auction down in Vegas, and I'm going to wrap that sucker and make it a beef market truck, and now I've got storage for my beef, and I've got wheels to get it around. So if you can find a truck on auction, a freezer truck on auction, that's going to be very helpful. I cannot tell you how many pounds of beef I lost picking it up from the processing plant in the middle of summer in Tooele or anywhere else I needed to get to just to get a spot and drive it all the way back to southern Utah, and I didn't have space for it all. I mean, pretty much every piece of beef that lined the pile in the middle was gone by the time I got home, right? So, because the other thing, and I don't have it in the slide, so I'll just digress slightly. If the packaging is not presentable, do not sell it to them. It's your family's beef or it's a giveaway. If there's blood on the package, if it crystallized at all, if there's a puncture in there, do not sell it. You find another way to make that bring in revenue, right? And you can do that by like finding a local foodie group and offering the person running that group a box of beef in exchange for a post. They're not going to care because they didn't pay for it. But if somebody paid you for that beef and it shows up bloody, it's not appealing. So you got to think about all, the best rule of thumb is everything matters. So if you look at it and you're like, it matters. Don't do it, okay? So this, honestly, the temperature control and the storage was one of my biggest headaches. Because we launched in 2020, and do you know what everybody ran to the store to buy when food shortages started happening? Deep freezers. I was scouring Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist just to find deep freezers to store the beef that I was bringing in, because not only were we growing and had the demand, but now I had to store it all. You go pick up 6 slaughtered cows, you better have a bunch of garage space and a whole lot of freezers, right? So that can be a challenging part of that. Again, I told you guys I'm going to be real with you, because if you're going to get into this, you got to know what's coming. There's value in it, but you got to be. I would rather you be prepared for it. This part was probably the single most stressful part of my whole experience, was managing the storage and the shipping of the pickup of this beef. Then the amount of hours that go into once you get it home, and then you have to start sorting it through all your freezers before it thaws out because you're in a hurry. It's a lot. So just, if you plan for it, like towards the end there, I had people ready to go. So when I pulled up, it was family members, that were ready, and we just made a whole system out of it. So just be ready for that. Commercial walk-in freezers is an option. Commercial freezer rental space is an option if you can find it. Deep freezers is what I did. Ice chests to pick up and bring it back home will help. And then how many pounds per pickup are you going to lose is what you have to consider there as well. Okay? Any questions on those two sections real quick? I only put a brief licensing. Check with your county and state. That could be a whole nother conversation. Licensing in terms of what it takes to sell to customers and what it takes to sell across state lines and all of those different things. So I'm not going to go into that here. You guys can do a little bit of research and find out, or message me and I'll see if I can pull up some documents and share with you. Who's doing what role? So how many of the middleman roles do you want to take on? Large families can divide and conquer, right? If you're a large producer family, this could be a great way to bring in extra revenue and have more people in your family make on-farm income. This is a phenomenal way to do that if you've got a big enough family. Clear communication, though, is going to be very important. Agreements versus expectations. When you have an agreement with somebody, it typically came from a conversation and possibly a handshake at the end. An expectation typically goes uncommunicated. You just expected them to do that. Anybody ever have any family communication drama? Yeah, that's where it comes from. Expectation versus agreements. It is a really good practice to get into where whenever you finish a conversation with somebody where roles are being discussed or somebody's got to do something, you finish it with, so, and just like bullet point. Okay, so we're in agreement, you're going to do this, this, and this by when. A by when is so crucial. Because if you forget the by when, that's where the breakdown is going to happen. Well, I thought I had an extra day, right? So create agreements with people, even your children. I have agreements with my kids, not expectations, right? Then it's easier to have that conversation and hopefully avoid any breakdowns. Do you have your own processor? Can your processor scale with your business? Will they commit X number of spots per month? We went over that enough. So to recap, book your processing spot or build your own processor. Research the right packaging for your context and order in bulk. Talking about like insulators or cardboard boxes and all that kind of stuff. Begin marketing, establish an online business and social media. You also need to be the hero of your ranch. So like I was telling you about my cousins doing Facebook, put yourself out there. Might be the most uncomfortable. When he started doing Facebook, he felt so foolish when he would set his camera downrange up, turn the record button on, walk back to his horse, get on his horse, ride the horse forward past his camera to get that shot, then get off his horse, turn the camera off, and then keep going to work. That's what he has to do. But if he can make a few $1,000s a month in apparel by doing that, what other thing are you going to spend in time in that space that's going to do that for you? So you may feel silly, but you'll laugh all the way to the bank when those apparel orders come in, okay? So it's entertainment. You're creating entertainment. How you bridge rural and urban is entertaining them. That make sense? All right. Let's see. Share your family and your story. Partner with influencers. Start marketing with a pre-order. So if you're getting ready to go and you know when the cows are going to be processed and they're coming to pick up, start pre-orders. Let people know, hey, they're coming. This is the date. Order now. You can make a pretty decent amount of money up front knowing that they're on their way. Cow shares and subscriptions are, again, recommendations or different options. I recommend the subscriptions if you can figure that out so you have that reoccurring revenue every month. I figured that out late. I sold a ton of bulk orders, and then I realized when I started selling subscriptions, I'm not seeing those people for 6 months to a year, right? Because they already filled their freezer. Subscriptions also work really well in smaller quantities if you are selling to places like Vegas, because you got to consider freezer space, right? Most people don't have deep freezers, but they can store 10, 15 pounds in their freezer, in their normal fridge. Sign up for the local farmers markets, ensure you have enough freezer storage, and increase that storage capacity as you go. And then have realistic expectations about the work that's going to be involved based off of your context. I think one of the best ways to start out is to consider it more of a extra for the family and sell as much as you can locally while you're looking into scaling and shipping. Because if you try to go right into the shipping and all of that stuff, you still have so many things that you have, like, I just told you everything, but there's a difference between hearing it and then actually doing it, right? Like, if you're like me, I got to make the mistake. I wish I could learn from somebody else's, but it don't work that way for me. So, what we do, if you want, we can help you with some consulting. I basically would just break this down a little bit further for you. And in the spirit of abundance versus scarcity, Cam King is phenomenal. You've got 5 Marys in her training program that's phenomenal. So go seek out what's going to work best for you. I am not going to be as detailed in my consulting with you as they are because I'm busy with the other things I'm doing. Does that make sense? So if you want somebody to really help you break it down, walk you all the way through it, go find one of those people. They've got a proven track record and they're really good at it. Okay? But if it's just some brief questions, basic questions, I'm happy to answer those. Now I have it here. When we expand south, we want to work with you. So again, briefly to kind of tell you who we are, if you weren't in the thing yesterday. If you're wanting to go direct to consumer because you're wanting to capture more of that value per pound, and there's not an option, basically everything I just shared with you guys, I did, and then I got to the point where I had a decision to make. Either stop and be done, but I didn't want to because I like being an ag and I think it's important that we find ways to create success here. So that was one option. Another option was go out and do whatever it took from what I learned. And what I learned was there was not enough processing. So I put a plan together to build processing plants throughout the entire country, smaller ones, about 100 to 200 head a day is the target. And then I had to go find the people that could make that happen, like I said in the beginning, and we did. So now we own a plant in Cody, Wyoming. It is not realistic for you guys to sell to me, and we're working on putting one down here as our next location. So the idea behind that is we took all of those middleman jobs off of your plate so that you can sell to us at a premium because we have vertically integrated the supply chain, right? A entrepreneur that owns a processing plant, he's an entrepreneur. He'd like to make money and be profitable, right? So he's going to want to maybe earn $500,000. I don't know if that's realistic or not. $250,000, $500,000 when all the bills are paid so that it's worth his time and effort. Well, that money has to come from somewhere. Well, you guys are paying those slaughter fees, right? For us, if we have an arrangement with our customers in the Montana, Wyoming area, for example, we can pay them a 10, 20 or more premium off what the market's doing because we have integrated every single step from them to the customer. And the reason I put that together was because of the challenges I was having, right? There was a need for more income on the ranch, but there wasn't time to put into that unless my cousin found me to help do that because 2020 put me out of work. And so I was available. That's an experience across so many different producer families that I wanted to help alleviate without them having to spend less time on the ranch and more time in all of this mess. So that's why, for me, my next step to scale was to put this system together and find the people that could actually help make it happen. So we're up and running. We are going to have a hard time filling our demand because of the way our team knows how to reach growth. And then in the meantime, for those that really want to go direct to consumer on their own, we are happy to help you. And if you want to, once we get a plant down here, there'll be space for you. That was one thing that we were committed to. We're going to build plants not just for our own supply line, but all the producers around us still need a place to get processing. So we got a place for you to come and process your own and do whatever you want with it. So that's who we are. That's what we do. And again, like I said, if you have any questions and you took pictures of this, let me know. I'm happy to share whatever information I have and help you guys be successful going direct to consumer. So any questions? Yes.
Working with influencers and getting them to post about your products, what kind of expectations do you set with them about how often you want them to see them post and their content?
Yeah, good question. So this is very specific. So if you want to write it down, it'll help you in your negotiation. So we just did a deal with an influencer. She's got a little over 300,000 followers, and she's got a 5% engagement. So our negotiation with her was, this was for a different product, by the way. The company I'm with, we make cold plunge, like cryo tubs, like ice baths that are self-cooling, self-cleaning. So we did this deal with this athlete, and basically her agent said that she was worth about $1,500 a month, and our product is $12,000, and so we spread that over 6 months. And what we've asked her to do is one profile post, one what do they call it, story post? No, not story. Like on her main page. So if you're on Instagram and you're scrolling through there and you see somebody's picture with the words underneath, right? So she's doing one of those a month, and then 3 story posts. Okay, this is the specific part. Stories get higher engagement. So 3 story posts per month, and they are 2 frames. So a frame is about 15 seconds long if you're watching a story. So it's about 30 seconds, and she's doing 3 a month of those for us. Included in that story post is a swipe up. So she can say, so excited to get my product from Regenerative Pastures. I'm excited to, use this to help me, because we're going to sponsor for this as well. I'm excited to have these guys help me meet my nutritional goals, blah, 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 blah. Swipe up to see what they've got. And so that means that a person that's seeing that can click the button or swipe up, and now they go right to our store. Does that make sense? So 1 main post and 3 story posts per month with 2 frames minimum. Now, this person has a huge engagement, so they demand more, right? A micro-influencer, I certainly would ask for more, but it would be relative to the exchange. You'll get a lot of people that will just post for a box of beef in that micro-influencer crowd.
So when we've done, posts like half a dozen, we've only ever done one thing with them and not gone back and done something else. But I can see the advantage when you talk about those 7 touches.
Yes.
Doing something more on a continual basis.
Yep.
To keep that going.
Yeah, so what he's referring to, 7 touches, in marketing, there's a saying that it takes 7 different impressions before somebody buys. So exactly to your point, if you partner with somebody and they only post 1 time, their audience, the percentage of the people following them that may have even seen that in the first place is probably very small compared to their overall number. And then if you only do it 1 time, they'll forget about you. But if she's posting for us 3 times a month, so once a week essentially, and then does that over 6 months, those 350,000 people are going to become pretty well aware of our brand by the time the 6 months is over. Make sense?
Do you do it for 6 months and then evaluate and maybe?
Yeah, I'm using that one as a reference for this particular arrangement. But like I said, her value was the cost of the tub. Now, if we continue with her, we'll evaluate on her sales numbers, and we might pay her $1,500.
Oh, okay, so your original payment was a tub.
Yes, yeah, it was an exchange of product. So she got a tub, was worth $12,000, broken down over 6 months. That's how we negotiated that. Now, after 6 months, she gets to keep the tub because we've reached that equal value. So if her ROI for us was high, we'll just keep her on contract and now pay her $1,500 a month.
Brought in $150,000 of income.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, she sells X number of tubs for us, and it's totally worth it to keep her on as a partner.
Your website's set up where you track that.
Yes. Yeah, because that swipe up, by the way, so it's something important too. If you are doing a deal and their name is, Let's Go Brandon. It could be swipe up, enter code, Let's Go Brandon, and that's attached to, I know this is broadcast, sorry, he's sweating back there. He's like, oh. So then that particular code is now assigned to that person. So when I look at ROI and their engagement rate and their conversion rate, because that's important, right? Doesn't do me any good if they're not converting anything. If that particular code was used a certain number of times, I'll now see it, in my back end of my cells. I'm like, oh man, every time this person posts, this code gets used X amount of times.
So I'm just curious, once you know a person essentially was generated from that influencer, will you assign a lifetime value to that person to the influencer?
Depends on the arrangement in the agreement. So sometimes you'll find somebody that has a ton of value and they want to negotiate, pay me this plus a percent and then a perpetual or a reoccurring percent. Does that make sense? Off of that one customer. Yeah, so if I hired you as an influencer and you sold a guy named James, right, or he bought through you and used your code and I know that, then the next time James orders, I won't pay that influencer, I won't pay you unless we had that arrangement. Yeah, good question. Yeah.
What does it take to be accredited in the regenerative pasture state? Is it kind of a, who's tracking that?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. So Regenerative Pastures is our brand. Nothing is certified yet. Now, I am working with, on a whole separate deal, working with Regen Earth Verified or Regenified. And they are one of a group of companies that are coming out to do that. So you also have the Savory Institute's Land to Market organization. They're also providing certification for their processes. My company, as far as I'm concerned, I'm good with any of them. I'm not, we're not playing teams. If they're meeting practices that benefit the land and that's how the animal's taken care of, sell through us. At some point, we probably will just say, show us your soil reports, right? And maybe a couple other key things, and then I don't care if you've been verified or not. So, yeah, good question. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, guys.
We might have to wipe that one off.